Hi, my name is David Wallman, and in this video, I'm not going to put myself in the brightest of lights. As a matter of fact, I'm going to sound pretty bad at times, but that's okay because I want to share with you the thought process that is going on in my mind as I'm approaching a new backing track. So we're going to do this real time. I'm not going to edit this. I'm going to hit play, and I'll just walk you through what's going on in my mind. I'll pause every once in a while, and hopefully this is going to be beneficial for you guys and for me too. It's always a good thing to sit back and think about what you're playing, why you're playing it, and all that kind of stuff. Let's get started. I'm going to press the play button. And the first thing I'm going to do is not play at all because I'm taking note of the tempo. Da, 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 da. Subdivisions. Usually 16th notes are going to work, and I need to start playing. So my volume is not going to be all the way up. I don't want to start really bold. I want to blend in, so I'm gonna try to reduce the volume just a little bit, maybe the tone a tiny little bit, and play with my fingers because I want to be subtle when I come in because I don't know which note to play. More chances of hitting a right note than a wrong note, and we'll talk about that in a second, but because I hear some guitars, I'm going to play an E. An E right here. Works. Why did I do that? Well, because I hear the guitars there in the back. Those guitars sound full and rich, which gives me an indication that there's probably some open strings in there that are going on in those guitars. Pay attention to that rhythm in the back. Not here so much. Not yet, but I think there's probably towards the beginning. There you go. Heard that? That's very open stringy as opposed to a bar chord. And if it's open string, I'm going to assume the guitar here isn't standard. I don't know. But if it is, and if there's open strings, most likely you're going to have an E in there. Because take a look at these open strings. An E. Open string. Of course we have an E. C. I have an E here. D doesn't have an E by default, but if I do add an E, that's a sus chord, and there's an E in there, we find E's in a lot of open chords. So that's why I took a calculated risk by playing that E. If the track was more of a jazzier type of thing, big band with a lot of horns and stuff, I'm not quite so sure yet. It's not very guitar friendly, but maybe I'd play a B flat instead. But for here, E was a safe bet, and there's more chances of hitting the right note than the wrong because there's 12 possible notes. Scales have 7 notes. Well, obviously the pentatonic doesn't, but you can always add 2 notes to have a fuller scale. 7 notes out of 12, those are more chances of more than 50%. So if you don't know what to play, play something. Chances are you'll hit the right notes. If you really don't know what to play, if you hear guitars, try an E. That's what I did here. Once I have that note, well, I've got 2 things that happened in my mind without going too far on the track. Now, obviously, we're talking a lot and stuff to explain to you the thought process, but this should happen very fast. Within a few seconds, you've got your subdivision. I hear an open chord there. It sounds like an open chord. I'm going to go with my E. Okay, what about that note? Well, that note, why did I go here instead of, or even, why? Oh, that was a good note, but why? Because I know my intervals, and you don't need to know all of them, but a few very useful ones are the 2nd and the 5th. The 2nd is very simple. If you have a note, that note is your reference. And we talked about that in a few weeks back, but if you have that note, start singing Happy Birthday. Happy birthday. The 2nd note, the 2nd pitch, bum, that's a major 2nd, that's 2 frets higher. Now, try to sing Happy Birthday from this note. Happy birthday, ba-ba. 2 frets higher is going to be bum. Okay? Now, the trick is to sing that song over what you're playing. So in this case, We know that this pitch, happy, you gotta sing the happy birthday to you, regardless of what's going on in the back. Happy birthday, does that work? In my mind, yes, so that's why I went there. Again, that happened very, very fast in my mind, but that's what's going on. That interval, now I have 2 notes out of 7. That's great. So 2 notes, I can start maybe having an idea of what's going on. So I told you a minute ago that 2 intervals are really important. The second, because of that, and if you just use those seconds, so from there, happy birthday, ba ba ba. Does that work? Ba ba ba. If so, then I can play 2 frets higher. Ba. If not, well, it's not going to be ba. It's going to be half step below. Ha ba ba bum ba bum. Or ba bum. You can just figure out that scale with just seconds. But that might take you a little while to get to that point. But it's possible. There's a second interval that is very, very useful, and that's the 5th. The perfect 5th. Because you can also have a diminished 5th or an augmented 5th. But the raw form of the 5th is the perfect 5th, and that's found in most church modes. The church modes are a collection of scales. So there's 7 of them. There's more that exist. Obviously, you can even make up your scale formulas. But within the church modes, and this sounds very church modey. It doesn't sound harmonic minor or melodic minor or even symmetrical type of thing. It sounds very classical and melodic, and it's almost ingrained in our minds the way that these chords happen there. There's nothing very exotic there, right? So probably in the church modes. And if you know your church modes formula, Ionian, Dorian, Phrygian, Lydian, Mixolydian, Aeolian, Locrian, the formula is what makes these modes what they are. So all the intervals, you will know that if you analyze them, the perfect 5th is found in all of them except for the Locrian that has a half diminished. So 6 out of 7 of the modes have a perfect 5th. Modes also follow each other. That's a full different topic. But just trust me on this. This means that any note that you play, there are 6 chances out of 7 that you can find a perfect 5th above or below that. Okay, just take my word for it. So in this case, we have this note. We know it works. We have the full step above. That works too. So we've got 2 notes. What if we added a perfect 5th above this note? Well, 6 chances out of 7 will work. Let's try that. It works as opposed to a diminished 5th or an augmented 5th, right? Now, what about this one? It works too. 2 perfect 5ths. Great. Now we have 4 notes out of 7. And again, this happens pretty quickly. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, what about the 5th below? And by the way, the shape of that perfect 5th, there's multiple shapes because you can play the same note on different strings, different frets. But the typical shape for that, and again, it depends on what string you are, but the typical shape would be something like this. If you have an E right here on the 2nd string, 5th fret, perfect 5th would be found on the next string, 2 frets higher. And this is true for any note on any string except on a note on the 3rd string. And in this case, the shape will be 3 frets higher because of that weird tuning. Power chords are 5th chords, a root and a 5th. Okay, so we have this. We also said that chances are that we have a perfect 5th below that. The shape for that is going to be on the screen here. And again, it's going to depend on where you are. But that shape is super useful because if you know your shapes, You can easily figure out the fifths below and start filling in the possible notes on your instrument. So I'm going to jam a little bit here using that knowledge. I'm going to use the second, the fifth to kind of figure out some of the possible notes. So I started with an E, major seconds because of the happy birthday thing. I'm going to play with those fifths above. I'll play with the fifths below. Okay, so I'm starting to have an idea of what notes will work. If I hit a fifth that is not a good fifth, the one from the Locrian, well, my ear is going to kind of like fix that. But my ear is really guiding me here. I still don't know the key, but I'm starting to fill in some possible notes. Okay, so why this note? Because I kind of heard it. That's a half step. That's the smallest distance we have to notes in Western music. And that kind of helped me. So now I have these possible notes that you can see on the screen here. Okay? And that kind of determines a zone. Because I spent a lot of time, just like you have, memorizing scale shapes and things like that. What happens when you're learning scale shapes and positions, not only are you developing your technical ability, but your ear is very involved in the process, whether you know it or not. And you're associating sounds with muscle movements and finger movements. And your tendons, your muscles, and all that are responding to what you're hearing. And you're training that. You're strengthening that invisible thread between what you're hearing and what you're playing naturally whenever you're playing something. Even if you're playing something like this, eventually you're hearing those notes and no note comes as a surprise. If you're hitting the wrong note, your ear is telling you, okay, something's wrong there. That's a proof that you are strengthening that connection between what you're hearing inside and what you're delivering. And that's what we're using here. So I started to have an idea of my fretboard just by searching around. And my fingers, it's almost like my finger has memory, well, finger memory, you heard the term, and it automatically kind of digs into its memory to figure out what the rest of the scale is. And I still don't know the key, but that's kind of what's happening here. So I'll start figuring out the simple notes like the E, which we decided because of the nature of the track, and then this major second, the fifth. Okay, that's the wrong one. And then eventually I will try to fill in some of those empty spaces. And my fingers are gonna use the muscle memory to kind of figure out what else is missing. Let's give that a try. Okay, the memory is kicking in. I still don't know the key, but the memory has kicked in now. And it's just like when you're imagining a story. If you have kids, you do this all the time. Bedtime comes and you're going to tell them a story. You're making up the story. Well, you've got the thought in your mind, and then you don't have to think about, okay, I want to talk about a bear. How do I put my mouth to make that sound, and how much air do I have to bring out to do of the bear. You don't think about it. It's automatic. That's how it happens on the instrument. But you're using simple theory tools like the major second, the fifth to figure out those things. Once you have that, we're going to use some of the very fast memory that you have, the direct memory. So for example, not long-term memory, but short-term memory. I've got this note, that note. I'm going to try to lock into that note mentally. Okay, and I'm going to play around. It goes so the ba is right here. I like how that sounds over this. What about this? I like it too. Here, I landed on that because I remembered it was right there. So you're going to build that connection as you go. You're going to be more and more comfortable with that kind of thing. And that's how you can create melodic lines that are developing into something that really matches the track. Let's continue a little bit. See what happened there? I landed on this note, but that note sounded like what I remembered from earlier, which was played here. And that's what allowed me to do, because I remembered. So all of that, I realized that this is slow, we're really taking the time, but that happens very, very fast in your mind. So I'm going to use all that I talked about on a new backing track that I haven't heard. We've heard this one enough, so I'm going to import another backing track. And by the way, you can get all the tracks that I'm using here for free. All you need to do is visit the link below, and I will send you those 5. I've got a pack of 5 backing tracks with recommended scales and stuff. But I'm just going to play. Think about everything we talked about. Don't play first. Just listen to the tempo, subdivision, the style. If it's like hardcore, big band jazz, probably a B flat. If you hear some guitars, probably E. and just take a chance and use your ear to fill in the blanks. I'm going to start playing slow, and then use my short-term memory, and then eventually my finger memory is going to take over, and you'll see that I'm going to play a little bit faster because I'm going to rely on my finger memory for the scales, the shapes, and the shreddy type of stuff. But let's just give it a try. And then also, the first thing I'm going to do, I've got tap delay. So on my Axe Effects, which is sitting on that thing right there, I'm going to tap as I go so that the delay matches this. So here we go. I hear some guitars there, so probably an E, but I'm going to listen first. You heard there, when the chord came, I didn't play. I wanted to hear the chord to make sure that there was no modulation there. Finger memory is kicking in. Okay, and I'm just searching around. It's not the most beautiful finished piece, but that's kind of the approach on a backing track that you've never heard. And obviously you can use this in a jam band situation or whatever when you're not prepared. These are the things that are really, really useful. Let me know what you think about this kind of video below. Should I do more? Should I do less? I would love to know your thoughts. And also, I have a pack of 5 backing tracks, including the backing tracks that I used in this video, for free. All you need to do is visit the link below. I will send you the 5 backing tracks, charts with recommended scale diagrams just for you to improvise and work on your instrument. Do it right now. Subscribe if you haven't already. Watch more videos. Thank you so much for your support. I'll see you next time. And until then, practice well.